The quiet of deep space was broken by a series of urgent beeps on the main deck of the Galactic Coalition patrol ship, Vigilance. Captain Reed, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums, jerked his head up from the report he was reading. "Report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the warning lights now flashing across his control panel. Officer Tim, seated at the scanner station, spoke quickly. "Unknown vessel detected at the edge of Sector 7, Captain. It's giving off very strange readings." Reed moved to stand behind Tim, looking at the screen with growing concern. The readings were indeed unusual. Heat signatures far beyond normal levels for a functioning ship. Particulate matter trailing behind the vessel. Chemical compositions that matched no known friendly species technology. "Is it under attack?" Reed asked, his secondary eyes narrowing to focus on the details. "No weapon signatures detected," Tim replied, her 4 hands moving rapidly over the controls. "But these emissions, I've never seen anything like this. The ship appears to be burning from the inside." Reed's skin paled to a lighter blue. In the 300 years of Galactic Coalition space travel, fire aboard ships had become nearly unheard of. Modern materials simply didn't burn. Fire suppression technology had advanced to the point where even the idea of flames on a starship was the stuff of horror stories told to scare young cadets. "Send emergency alert to Coalition headquarters," Reed commanded. "Unknown vessel in distress. Possible catastrophic system failure with internal combustion. Request immediate assistance." Within minutes, the response came back. 3 additional Coalition ships were being diverted to their location. Emergency medical teams were being assembled. Fire suppression units were being prepped. "The ship is maintaining a steady course," Tim reported with surprise. "If they're experiencing a fire of this magnitude, their navigation systems should be compromised." Reed studied the trajectory. "They're heading directly toward Coalition space. Maybe they're making a desperate run for help." The ship's communication officer, Marn, suddenly straightened in his seat. "Captain, the unknown vessel is transmitting." "Put it through," Reed ordered, bracing himself for distress calls or fragmented emergency messages. Instead, a calm, clear voice came through the speakers. "Coalition patrol vessel, this is Captain Miller of the Earth ship Prometheus. We notice you've been tracking us for the past 20 minutes. Is there a problem?" The bridge crew of the Vigilance exchanged confused looks. The voice sounded completely untroubled. "This is Captain Reed of the Coalition patrol ship Vigilance. We've detected serious anomalies aboard your vessel. Are you aware your ship is showing signs of internal combustion?" There was a pause, then what sounded strangely like laughter. "Oh, that. Yes. Everything's fine, Captain Reed. We're just preparing the evening meal. First night of our journey, so we're having a bit of a celebration." Reed blinked all 4 eyes in succession, a sign of extreme confusion among his species. "Preparing meal? With fire?" he asked, his translator possibly malfunctioning. "Yes, we've got the grill going in, the mess hall. Chef's special tonight. Actual flame-broiled burgers, not those synthesized things. We also have a few science experiments running that require controlled combustion. Standard procedure." The bridge of the Vigilance fell silent. Reed looked at his science officer Dale, who appeared just as baffled. "Your species deliberately creates fire inside your vessels?" Dale asked, unable to keep the horror from his voice. "Well, sure," Captain Miller replied casually. "Humans have been cooking with fire for about 1,000,000 years. Hard habit to break. Our ships are designed for it." By this time, the 3 emergency response vessels had arrived, surrounding the human ship in standard rescue formation. The lead, rescue ship Mercy, was already deploying boarding shuttles filled with fire suppression teams in full hazard gear. Reed quickly opened a channel to all ships. "Hold your positions. This may be a first contact situation with unknown protocols." Back to the human captain, Reed spoke carefully. "Captain Miller, our sensors indicate temperatures in several sections of your ship that would be fatal to most Coalition species. Are you certain your crew is safe?" There was that strange sound again, laughter. "Quite safe, Captain Reed. Humans are very heat tolerant, and the cooking areas are well ventilated. Would you like to come aboard and see for yourself? We have Plenty of food to share. Reed hesitated. Coalition protocol demanded investigation of any potential hazard near their borders, but boarding a ship with active fires went against every safety regulation in the book. I accept your invitation, Reed finally said, but I must bring safety officers and medical personnel. Bring whoever you like, Miller replied cheerfully. Docking Bay 3 is open for you. 30 minutes later, Reed led a team of 10 coalition officers, all wearing full environmental protection suits, through the airlock of the human ship. They were met by Captain Miller, a surprisingly small being with light brown skin and only 2 eyes, wearing nothing more protective than what she called a uniform. Welcome aboard the Prometheus, Miller said, with a gesture Reed's translator identified as friendly. Sorry for the confusion. We weren't informed that open flames would cause such alarm. All flames cause alarm in space, Reed said stiffly. Fire consumes oxygen and produces toxic gases. It damages systems and kills crew. Miller nodded. For us, controlled fire is a tool. Let me show you. She led the nervous coalition team through corridors that seemed remarkably normal, despite the alarming readings on their environmental sensors. When they reached what Miller called the galley, Reed almost ordered an immediate evacuation. In an open area, visible behind safety glass, a human was standing before a metal surface that glowed with actual flames. The human was turning pieces of what appeared to be organic matter directly over these flames. Nearby, another human was manipulating a device that heated water to the point of visible steam. That's our chef Tom grilling the burgers I mentioned, Miller explained casually. And over there is our coffee station, essential for human functioning, especially during early shift. Dale, the science officer, was frantically taking readings. Captain Reed, he whispered. These humans are deliberately exposing protein-rich organic material to temperatures that cause chemical changes, and then they appear to be planning to consume it. You mean, they're going to eat things they put in fire? Reed asked, his voice faint. Miller grinned. We call it cooking, and we've been doing it since before we had spaceflight. Would you like to try some? Tom makes the best burgers in the fleet. Reed looked at the flames, then at the calm humans moving around them as if standing next to certain death was completely normal. In that moment, he realized this first contact was going to be far more complicated than anyone in the coalition could have imagined. I think, Reed said slowly, we need to talk about your species' relationship with fire. Captain Reed and his team stood frozen in the doorway of the human ship's galley. The sight of open flames aboard a spacecraft went against everything they had been taught since their earliest training days. Perhaps we should continue this conversation elsewhere, Reed suggested, his voice tight with stress. Somewhere without active burning. Captain Miller looked puzzled but nodded. Of course. The conference room is just down the hall, but the burgers will be ready in about 10 minutes, if you'd like to stay. As they walked, Reed noticed his science officer Dale was still taking readings with a handheld scanner, his eyes wide with fascination and horror. Captain, Dale whispered, their environmental systems are filtering the combustion byproducts at an impressive rate, and the fire is contained within designated areas with multiple safety systems. Reed glanced back toward the galley. You mean they've engineered their ships to accommodate fire? Deliberately? It appears so, Dale said. Fascinating and terrifying at the same time. The conference room was mercifully free of flames. The coalition officers sat stiffly in their protective suits while Captain Miller and her first officer, a tall man named Adams, sat comfortably across from them. I understand this must be quite a shock, Miller said, leaning forward with her elbows on the table. Our briefings mentioned that coalition species had moved away from combustion technology, but we didn't realize it would cause such alarm. Moved? Away? Reed's translator struggled to convey his tone of disbelief. Open flame has been banned on all coalition vessels for over 200 years. It's considered as dangerous as a hull breach. Adams, the first officer, looked surprised. Really? No cooking with fire? No candles? No fireplaces in the recreation areas? Fire places. Dale repeated the unfamiliar term, his scanner nearly dropping from his hand. You create dedicated locations for fire? Miller smiled. On Earth, our home planet, many homes still have fireplaces. They're mostly for comfort and tradition now, but they were essential for thousands of years. Humans gathered around fires for warmth, protection, and community. Reed's skin shifted to a pale blue, indicating deep confusion. Your species evolved with fire. We did more than evolve with it, Adams explained. We mastered it. Some scientists believe controlling fire is what made humans, well, human. It changed how we ate, how we socialized, even how our brains developed. At that moment, the door slid open and a human crew member entered carrying a tray. On it were several flat, round objects that emitted a strong aroma. The coalition officers tensed, their protective suits automatically sealing completely closed. I thought you might be hungry, Captain Miller said. These are the burgers I mentioned. Beef patties cooked over an open flame, served on bread with various toppings. Reed stared at the food with equal parts curiosity and horror. And you? Eat this food that has been deliberately exposed to fire? It tastes better that way, the crew member said simply, setting down the tray. The flame creates flavors you can't get from a food synthesizer. Dale had directed his scanner toward the food. Captain Reed, the chemical composition of these items has been significantly altered by the heating process. New compounds have formed that weren't in the original materials. That's the point, Miller said. We call it the Maillard reaction. It creates hundreds of new flavor compounds. It's why grilled food tastes different from boiled food. The word different hardly seemed adequate to Reed. His species, like most in the coalition, had been eating synthesized or minimally processed foods for generations. The idea of deliberately causing chemical reactions in food through extreme heat was primitive, dangerous, and yet these humans seemed not just comfortable with it but enthusiastic. There are other uses of controlled fire on your vessel? Reed asked cautiously. Miller nodded. Several of our science labs use combustion in experiments. Our ceremonial area has candles for various human traditions. And of course, there's the coffee machines, tea kettles, and other heating elements in personal quarters. Reed's 4 eyes blinked in sequence again. You allow individual crew members to create fire in their private spaces? With proper safety protocols, yes, Adams said. Most quarters have small heating elements for beverages. Some crew members even have permission to burn incense for religious or meditation purposes. Dale was frantically taking notes. Captain Reed, this suggests a fundamental difference in how humans interact with their environment. They don't just tolerate fire, they incorporate it into daily life, science, and even spiritual practices. One of the medical officers who had remained silent until now spoke up. How do you prevent casualties? Fire consumes oxygen, creates toxic gases, and damages tissue on contact. Captain Miller's expression grew more serious. We take fire safety very seriously. Every human child is taught about fire safety from a young age. Our ships have extensive suppression systems, compartmentalization, and sensors far more sensitive than most vessels. Fire is a tool we respect, not something we fear. Reed considered this. The concept was so alien to him that he struggled to find the right questions to ask. In coalition training, fire was presented as an unmitigated disaster, something to be prevented at all costs. But these humans spoke of it almost as a companion species. I would like to observe your fire safety protocols, Reed finally said, and document how you coexist with this element. Captain Miller smiled. Of course, we'd be happy to show you. In fact, if you're comfortable with it, we're planning a small celebration tonight. One of our crew members has a birthday, and human tradition includes small controlled flames on a sweet food item we call cake. The coalition officers exchanged alarmed glances, their protective suits whirring softly as environmental controls adjusted to their stress levels. You deliberately set food on fire, for celebration purposes? Reed asked. Just small candles, Adams explained. The birthday person makes a wish and blows them out. It's harmless. The medical officer's voice was faint. You encourage blowing. Air onto flames, wouldn't that spread the fire? That's the point, Miller said with a laugh. To extinguish them. Reed sat back in his chair, feeling overwhelmed. What had begun as an emergency response to a potential disaster had become a first contact scenario unlike any in Coalition records. These humans didn't just tolerate danger, they celebrated it, cooked with it, even blew air at it for fun. I believe, Reed said slowly, that we need to update our species' interaction protocols. Humans appear to have a unique relationship with elements that other species consider hazardous. Miller nodded, looking pleased. We've found that's often the case when we meet new species. What's dangerous to one can be essential to another. Would you like to try a burger? Your suit should be able to analyze it for compatibility with your biology. Reed looked at the strange food, browned by actual fire, sitting innocently on the table. It represented everything the Coalition had moved beyond centuries ago. And yet, these humans had built starships advanced enough to reach Coalition space, while still cooking their food over flames. Perhaps, Reed said carefully, there are some old ways that still have value. He reached for the burger, initiating his suit's external object handling protocol, and wondered what other surprises these flame-loving humans might have in store. Word traveled fast in Coalition space. By the time the human ship Prometheus was escorted to Orbital Station 7, the largest Coalition outpost in the sector, nearly every official had heard about the fire-using aliens. The docking procedures took 3 times longer than normal. Station safety officers insisted on special containment fields and emergency teams standing by. Captain Miller and her crew found the extra precautions amusing, but cooperated fully. Are they always this nervous? Adams asked as they waited in the airlock. Miller shrugged. Remember how the Martian colonists reacted when we first showed them actual soil gardening? Some species just get set in their ways. When the airlock finally opened, they were greeted by a delegation of high-ranking Coalition officials. At the front stood Station Director Brill, a tall, thin being with silvery skin that reflected the station lights. Welcome to Orbital Station 7, Director Brill said formally. We have prepared special quarters for your stay that should accommodate your unusual requirements. Captain Miller smiled politely. Thank you, Director. We're looking forward to establishing good relations with the Coalition. Yes, well, Brill said, looking uncomfortable. There are certain matters we must discuss first. If you would follow me to the conference room. The conference room was large, with a long table surrounded by representatives from various Coalition species. Captain Miller, Adams, and Human Ambassador Jones took seats on one side. Director Brill and the station's security chief, Naven, sat directly across from them. Let me be direct, Brill began. Your cooking and heating practices present a significant safety concern for our station and all Coalition vessels. Ambassador Jones nodded. Captain Reed informed us of your concerns. We understand that Coalition species have moved away from using open flame technology. Moved away? Security Chief Naven's voice was sharp. We eliminated it completely. It's a Level 1 prohibited technology, alongside biological weapons and unshielded radiation sources. The humans exchanged surprised glances. That seems extreme, Ambassador Jones said carefully. Fire is a basic tool for humanity. We've been using controlled flames for cooking, heating, and cultural practices for our entire history. A science officer at the far end of the table spoke up. Our records indicate your species only achieved spaceflight in the last few centuries. Yet you've maintained these primitive combustion practices. Miller tried to hide her annoyance at the word primitive. We've refined and improved our relationship with fire, not abandoned it. Our ships have the most advanced fire safety systems in our fleet's history. Director Brill slid a data tablet across the table. These are Coalition safety regulations regarding prohibited technologies. Section 37.2 clearly states that no open flame is permitted on any vessel or station under any circumstances. Ambassador Jones picked up the tablet and scanned it quickly. I see. However, as non-members of the Coalition, we operate under our own safety protocols, and those protocols have proven extremely effective. Not the point, Security Chief Naven said firmly. While in Coalition space, all vessels must comply with Coalition safety standards. A tense silence fell over the room. The humans had traveled a great distance to establish diplomatic relations with the coalition, but giving up cooking with fire would be asking them to abandon a fundamental part of their culture. Perhaps a compromise, Ambassador Jones suggested. What if we restrict cooking and other flame activities to our ship only? When visiting your stations or vessels, we'll respect your regulations. Director Brill's silvery skin rippled with what seemed to be frustration. That still leaves your vessel as a potential hazard in our space. A hazard? Captain Miller couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Our ship has traveled through 3 star systems without incident. We've had exactly 0 fire-related emergencies in the 5 years since Prometheus was launched. That's not the point, another coalition official said. The mere presence of intentional combustion within our jurisdiction creates unacceptable risk. Ambassador Jones leaned forward. With respect, what exactly are you asking? That we shut down our kitchens, our science labs? That we change our entire way of life to visit your space? Yes, Director Brill said simply. That would be the safest option. The human delegation was stunned into silence. It was one thing to be told their practices were unusual, quite another to be asked to abandon them completely. Captain Miller stood up slowly. Perhaps we should take some time to consider our options. This is clearly a more significant cultural difference than we anticipated. As the humans left the conference room, the coalition officials remained, talking in low voices about the dangerous aliens and their bizarre attachment to creating fire in enclosed spaces. Back on the Prometheus, the human crew gathered in the mess hall, ironically around the very grills and cooking stations that had caused the problem. They're seriously expecting us to give up cooking? Chef Tom asked, flipping a steak on the grill. The sizzling sound and rich aroma filled the room. That's not happening. Ambassador Jones sighed. We need to find some middle ground. The coalition represents 17 spacefaring species and controls most of the trading routes in this sector. We can't just write them off. Adams was reviewing the safety regulations on a tablet. Their fear of fire goes beyond reasonable caution. It's almost religious, like they see fire as some kind of evil force. That might not be far off, Miller said. Dale, the science officer from the Vigilance, told me that several coalition species evolved on planets with naturally occurring fire hazards, forest fires, volcanic activity, that sort of thing. They never learned to control fire because they were too busy running from it. Ambassador Jones considered this. So while humans were sitting around campfires telling stories, their ancestors were fleeing from flames and terror. No wonder they don't understand our relationship with it. So what do we do? Adams asked. Shut down our kitchens and eat their synthesized food while we're here? No, Miller said firmly. We find a way to show them that controlled fire isn't just safe, it's valuable. We need to change their perspective. The discussion was interrupted by a sudden blaring alarm. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the ship. What now? Miller muttered, moving to the comm panel on the wall. Bridge report. The voice of the duty officer came through, sounding concerned. Captain, we're receiving an emergency broadcast from the station. They're experiencing some kind of major systems failure. Power outages across multiple sections. Miller looked back at her officers, a grim smile forming on her face. Well, Ambassador, you wanted to demonstrate human value to the coalition. I think we just got our chance. What are you thinking, Captain? Jones asked. I'm thinking, Miller replied, that a station without power might appreciate some people who know how to create light and heat the old-fashioned way. As they rushed to gather emergency supplies, Chef Tom carefully shut down his grill, not knowing that the cooking fire he was extinguishing would soon make humans the most valuable allies in the darkened station. Darkness fell over Orbital Station 7 like a heavy blanket. Emergency lights flickered weakly for a few seconds, then died completely. The temperature began to drop almost immediately as the environmental systems failed. Inside the station's control, Center Director Brill and his staff moved in confused panic. Their species had excellent night vision, but the complete absence of light still triggered deep instinctual fears. Status report, Brill demanded, his voice higher than normal. Primary and secondary power systems have failed, someone reported from the darkness. Backup systems are not responding. Environmental controls are offline. Estimated temperature dropped to dangerous levels within 2 hours. How is this possible? Brill asked. Triple redundant systems don't just fail simultaneously. Security Chief. Haven's voice came from near the door. We're getting reports of panic in the residential sections. Many species are not handling the darkness well. This was an understatement. Several coalition species had evolved on planets with constant daylight or lived in shallow waters where darkness never reached. Complete darkness triggered profound terror in their brains. We need to restore power immediately, Brill ordered. Contact all engineering teams. Communications are down, came the reply. Internal comms are operating on emergency batteries only, and those will fail within the hour. The situation was rapidly becoming a disaster. Without power, the station would become uninhabitable. Without light, many species would be paralyzed by fear. Without heat, cold-sensitive species would begin to die. A voice spoke from the doorway. Director Brill, this is Captain Miller of the Prometheus. We'd like to help. Brill turned toward the sound. Captain, how did you find the control center in this darkness? Humans evolved as a species that was active during both day and night, Miller explained, stepping into the room. We're comfortable in darkness when necessary, and we brought these. Suddenly, a warm glow filled the room. The humans had brought handheld lights, not the cold blue emergency lights of coalition technology, but warm yellow flames enclosed in glass containers. Are those fires? Naven asked, his voice a mix of horror and fascination. Lanterns, Miller corrected. Controlled flames in contained environments. Been using them for thousands of years during power outages on Earth. The coalition officials stared at the gentle flames. The dancing light cast soft shadows around the room. But instead of making things more frightening, it somehow made the darkness less absolute, less terrifying. We've brought similar lighting to other key areas of the station, Ambassador Jones explained, stepping forward, and we're setting up temporary heating centers in the main gathering spaces. Heating centers? Brill repeated. Portable heating devices, Miller said. Some electric running on our ship's batteries, others using safe combustion methods. We can keep critical areas warm enough for survival until power is restored. Brill and Naven exchanged glances, visible now in the warm light from the human lanterns. You were prepared for this kind of emergency? Naven asked suspiciously. Adams shook his head. Not specifically, but humans have dealt with power outages throughout our history. We maintain certain traditional technologies as backups. Captain Reed from the Vigilance thought our fire practices were primitive, but sometimes the simple solutions are the most reliable. Brill seemed to struggle with the idea. His entire career had been built around following coalition safety protocols, and yet here were these humans, bringing the very thing he feared, fire, into his station, and it was providing light and comfort rather than destruction. Very well, he said finally. What do you need from us? We need your people to stay calm, Miller said, and we need to know which areas of the station house species most vulnerable to cold. With the immediate crisis of darkness addressed, the humans set to work. Crews from the Prometheus moved through the station, setting up simple heating stations in key locations. They used portable cooking stoves, chemical heat packs, and even small controlled fire pits in areas with proper ventilation. In the main medical bay, Dr. West from the Prometheus worked alongside Coalition Medical Officer Bennett to identify species with the greatest vulnerability to cold. These flame heat sources, Bennett said, watching humans set up a heating station, they're so basic, yet effective. Humans have been huddling around fires for warmth since before we built cities, West explained. There's something deeply comforting about it that goes beyond the physical heat. In the central gathering hall, Chef Tom had set up several cooking stations. The warm glow of controlled flames drew frightened station residents like moths to light. Many coalition species, who had never seen fire except in emergency training videos, now found themselves drawn to its warmth and light. What is that smell? Asked a young coalition member. their forearms wrapped tightly around themselves. "Hot chocolate," Tom answered, stirring a pot over a portable stove. An Earth comfort drink, warm, sweet, and surprisingly effective at improving morale during emergencies. As the hot drinks were passed around, the tension in the room visibly decreased. Species that had been taught to fear fire their entire lives were now sitting near it, accepting its warmth, even finding comfort in its presence. In the engineering section, Adams worked with station engineers to diagnose the power failure. The humans' comfort with working by lantern light proved invaluable, as coalition engineers struggled in the unfamiliar conditions. "Your people seem very calm during this crisis," one engineer commented. Adams shrugged. "Power outages happen. Humans are good at adapting to temporary setbacks, and we're also good at finding comfort in difficult situations. That's part of why we kept using fire even after we had cleaner technologies. There's something about a flame that speaks to something deep in the human spirit." 6 hours into the crisis, with the station's temperature stabilized by human heating methods and the panic eased by the warm light, a team of engineers finally identified the source of the power failure, a cascading system error triggered by an unexpected solar flare. In the control center, Director Brill had been watching the humans work with growing fascination. These beings who deliberately created fire on their ships had turned what the Coalition considered a deadly threat into a life-saving resource. "Your methods are unorthodox," Brill admitted to Captain Miller as they reviewed the station's status. "But I cannot deny their effectiveness in this situation." Miller smiled. "Sometimes the oldest solutions are the most reliable. Humanity never abandoned fire because we learned to see it as a tool, not just a danger." As the emergency lights finally flickered back to life, powered by jury-rigged systems, Brill looked around at the lanterns the humans had brought. Their warm glow now seemed almost friendly compared to the harsh blue emergency lighting. "Perhaps," Brill said slowly, "there are some old ways that deserve reconsideration." Miller nodded. "Fire can be dangerous, yes, but so can any powerful tool. The key isn't to ban it, but to respect it and learn to use it properly." As power gradually returned to the station, section by section, many Coalition members found themselves strangely reluctant to see the human lanterns extinguished and the heating stations dismantled. Something about the dancing flames had awakened old, forgotten instincts. Memories of ancestors who had once, long ago, gathered around fires for warmth and protection before technology had made such practices unnecessary. And perhaps some began to wonder unnecessary didn't always mean without value. 2 days after the power crisis, Orbital Station 7 had returned to normal operations. The Coalition engineering teams had restored all systems, repaired the damage from the solar flare, and added new safeguards to prevent similar failures in the future. But something had changed on the station. The atmosphere was different. The way Coalition members looked at the human visitors had shifted. In the main conference room, the Coalition Council had reconvened. This time, however, the meeting had none of the tension of their previous encounter. Director Brill sat at the head of the table, with Captain Miller and Ambassador Jones to his right. "The Council has reviewed the events of the recent emergency," Brill began formally, "and we wish to express our official gratitude to the crew of the Prometheus for their assistance during the crisis." Miller nodded politely. "We were happy to help, Director." "More than help," another council member added. "Your quick action and unconventional methods saved lives, particularly among our cold-sensitive species." Ambassador Jones smiled. "Humans have a long history of adapting to emergencies. Fire has been one of our most valuable tools in that regard." Brill cleared his throat. "Yes, about that. The Council has been discussing your fire practices. We have reviewed our safety regulations regarding open flame aboard vessels and stations." The humans waited, expecting another lecture about safety protocols. "We would like to learn more," Brill continued, surprising them. "About how humans safely manage fire in space environments." Captain Miller blinked in surprise. "You want us to teach you about fire safety?" "Not just safety," Brill said, "but also applications. Many species reported finding the warmth and light from your heating methods more comforting than our standard emergency systems. Security Chief Navin added. Several medical officers noted reduced stress levels among patients who were near your lanterns during the crisis. There appears to be some psychological benefit we had not considered. This was a remarkable shift. Just days ago, these same officials had been horrified by the very idea of fire aboard their station. Now they were talking about psychological benefits. We would be happy to demonstrate our methods, Miller said. Perhaps we could start with something simple like our cooking techniques. Yes, Brill agreed. A practical demonstration would be most informative. And so began what the humans would later call the Great Coalition Cookout. Chef Tom and his team set up cooking stations in one of the station's largest gathering spaces. With proper ventilation established and safety measures in place, they began to demonstrate human cooking techniques to fascinated coalition observers. The key to fire safety, Tom explained to a group of coalition engineers, isn't eliminating fire completely. It's understanding how it works, respecting its power, and containing it properly. He showed them how human cooking stations were designed with multiple redundant safety features, how fire suppression systems worked, how humans had learned to control flames rather than fear them. But the real breakthrough came when coalition members began to taste the food. This is extraordinary, a coalition scientist said after trying a grilled vegetable that was compatible with their biology. The flavors are completely different from synthesized food. That's the Maillard reaction I mentioned earlier, Adams explained. The chemical changes that occur during cooking create flavor compounds that can't be perfectly replicated by food synthesizers. Throughout the day, more coalition members gathered to watch the demonstrations. Medical Officer Bennett had set up a station to monitor physiological responses to the cooked food among different species. Fascinating, Bennett reported to Captain Miller. Many species are showing positive neurological responses to both the aroma and flavor of fire-cooked foods, similar to responses we see with comfort stimuli. Miller smiled. Humans have known that for thousands of years. There's something primal about food cooked over flame that connects to something deep inside us. By evening, Captain Reed from the Vigilance had arrived at the station. He approached Miller with what his species considered a smile. "It seems your dangerous habits have found some admirers," Reed said, gesturing to where several coalition officials were cautiously attempting to cook under Tom's supervision. "Not dangerous when properly respected," Miller replied. "Just different from what you're used to." Reed nodded. "I've been reviewing historical data. Most coalition species abandoned fire use very early in their technological development. We never went through the thousands of years humans spent mastering it." "Different evolutionary paths," Miller agreed. "You developed other technologies instead." "Yes, but perhaps we lost something in the process," Reed admitted. "The crisis showed that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable." 1 week later, the council reconvened for a formal announcement. Director Brill stood at the podium looking both serious and slightly uncomfortable. After careful consideration and extensive safety reviews, Brill announced, the Coalition Council has approved a new exception to our safety regulations. Under the classification of human cultural practices, controlled fire use will be permitted in designated areas of coalition space, subject to strict safety protocols and training requirements. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was unprecedented, the first exception ever granted to the fire prohibition in 200 years of coalition history. Furthermore, Brill continued, we are announcing the establishment of a cultural exchange program between humans and coalition species. The first course offerings will include Introduction to Cooking with Fire and Emergency Survival Techniques. Captain Miller and Ambassador Jones exchanged pleased glances. This was far more than they had hoped for when they first entered coalition space. 6 months later, the Prometheus returned to Orbital Station 7 after completing a diplomatic tour of several coalition worlds. As they docked, Miller couldn't help but notice the changes. The station now featured a large, specially designed Earth Cultural Center with proper ventilation and safety systems. Inside, several cooking stations were in use, with coalition members working alongside human instructors. Captain Reed met them at the airlock, his skin a cheerful bright blue. Welcome back, Captain Miller, he said. Thank you, Captain Reed, Miller replied. I see things have changed since our last visit. Reed made a gesture of agreement. Indeed. I've been taking the cooking classes myself. I've found I have something of a talent for it. Really? Miller raised an eyebrow in surprise. Yes, Reed said with pride. I've become particularly skilled at what you call grilling. There's something satisfying about mastering the control of flame. As they walked through the station, Miller noticed other changes too. Many personal quarters now featured small heating elements for beverages. Some gathering spaces had contained fire features that reminded her of the fireplaces humans had used for centuries. In the main dining hall, they found Chef Tom working alongside a coalition chef. They were teaching a class on combining human cooking techniques with coalition ingredients. Our star student, Tom said, gesturing to a familiar face. It was the formerly terrified coalition officer who had first boarded the Prometheus expecting to find a ship in catastrophic failure. Now he was carefully turning pieces of food over, an open flame, his 4 eyes focused with concentration instead of fear. It's a matter of perspective, Reed explained as they watched. What was once seen as a primitive danger is now understood as a valuable cultural practice with practical applications. Miller smiled. Fire has always been that way for humans. Dangerous when feared, valuable when respected. As they joined the cooking class, Miller reflected on how far they had come. What had begun as an emergency response to a supposed disaster had become a bridge between cultures. The humans had brought more than just their technology to the coalition. They had brought an ancient relationship with a fundamental force of nature, one that many species had abandoned too quickly in their rush toward technological advancement. Sometimes, Miller thought as she watched coalition members and humans cooking side by side, the oldest traditions have the most to teach us about being alive in the universe. And sometimes what looks like a fire on a starship is just humans being human. The day humans realized they were not alone in the universe started like any other. Captain Tom Harris stood on the bridge of the UES Pioneer, Earth's first true deep space vessel. His weathered face showed both pride and worry as the ship pushed, further from home than any human had ever gone. Captain, we're picking up unusual signals, said Lisa, the communications officer. Her eyes were fixed on the screen in front of her. What kind of signals? Tom walked over, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. Not random, sir. Definitely made by someone. Or something. The crew grew quiet. After decades of searching the stars, humanity might finally have its answer. Track it, Tom ordered. Let's see where it leads. For 3 days, the Pioneer followed the strange signals. On the 4th day, they found themselves facing something impossible. A massive structure floating in space at least 20 times the size of their ship. Is that a space station? Asked Mike, the pilot. Before anyone could answer, a beam of light hit their ship. The crew braced for damage, but instead their screens flickered and showed a face, not human, but not completely alien either. It had 2 eyes, a mouth, and what looked like skin, but everything was just different enough to seem wrong. Greetings, biological entities, the being said in perfect English. We are the Assembly. Your signals have been monitored for some time. Your approach was expected. Tom straightened his uniform and stepped forward. I am Captain Tom Harris of the United Earthship Pioneer. We come in peace as explorers. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Explorers, with your primitive technology? Interesting. We have been watching your world for centuries. Your wars, your pollution, your endless fighting. You are savages who somehow managed to build a spaceship. The word savages hung in the air like a bad smell. We are a young species, Tom admitted, but we are learning and growing. We wish to join the galactic community. The alien's face showed what might have been pity. The Assembly does not accept savages as equals. However, we are not cruel. You will be allowed limited trading rights. Nothing more. Over the next week, the Pioneers crew learned more about the assembly, a group of 15 advanced species who controlled most of the known galaxy. They had rules, laws, and a clear order where newer, less advanced species served the older ones. Ambassador Jane Reed, the mission's diplomatic expert, tried daily to improve relations. "We have much to offer," she told their alien hosts during a meeting. "Art, music, new ways of thinking." "Savage art and primitive music," replied the alien representative named Dorn. "And your ways of thinking led to nearly destroying your own planet several times." In private, the ship's military advisor Bill argued for caution. "They're looking down on us, Captain. That's dangerous. People who think others are savages don't treat them well." "What would you have me do?" Tom asked. "Start a fight with beings who could probably destroy Earth with a push of a button?" "No," Bill said, "but don't trust them either." After 2 weeks of talks, the assembly reached a decision. Earth would be granted minor trading status and permission to explore certain areas of space, but they would not be given advanced technology, and Earth would have to accept a supervisory delegation, assembly members who would live on Earth to guide human development. Everyone knew what that really meant. They would be watched. Controlled. When the Pioneer returned to Earth with several assembly representatives, the news spread worldwide. Some people celebrated first contact. Others warned it was the beginning of the end. At the United Nations, Ambassador Reed presented the assembly's terms. "They offer us knowledge and limited technology in exchange for resources and allowing their delegation to monitor our progress." "They called us savages," Bill reminded everyone. "Now they want to move in and watch us. Does no one see the danger?" World leaders argued for days. In the end, fear won over pride. The assembly's terms were accepted. 6 assembly ships arrived 1 month later, bringing 50 delegates from various species. They built a compound in what was once international waters and began their supervision of humanity. Captain Tom found himself promoted to head of extraterrestrial relations, a fancy title that mostly meant he had to listen to assembly complaints about human behavior. "Your people continue to fight wars, Dorn," now the lead delegate told him during their weekly meeting. 3 armed conflicts still rage on your planet." "We're working on it," Tom replied. "Thousands of years of history don't change overnight. Other species managed it," Dorn said with that same look of pity. The assembly delegates brought gifts, medical knowledge that cured several diseases, more efficient energy technology, and improved farming methods. But they held back anything related to their advanced space travel, weapons, or communication systems. "When you prove yourselves less savage," Dorn would say when asked. By the end of the first year, Earth had changed. Assembly technology had helped with climate problems and food shortages, but human independence was shrinking. Any new space mission needed assembly approval. Military technology development was restricted. Even the internet was monitored for dangerous ideas. One night, Tom sat with Jane and Bill on the roof of the Earth Space Agency building looking at the stars. "We traded our freedom for some fancy tech," Bill said, drinking from his coffee cup. "We had no choice," Jane replied. "They're too powerful to fight." Tom remained quiet, watching an assembly ship glide silently across the night sky. He thought about the word savage and how it had been used throughout human history. Always, by those who believed themselves superior to justify controlling others. "Maybe they're right about us," he finally said. "We do fight too much. We did nearly destroy our planet." "That doesn't make us savages," Bill argued. "It makes us human. We make mistakes, we learn, we grow, on our own terms. For now, we play by their rules," Tom said. "We learn everything we can from them, and we prepare." "Prepare for what?" Jane asked. Tom watched the assembly ship disappear into the darkness. "For the day we prove we're not what they think we are." None of them knew that day would come much sooner than expected, with the discovery of something that would change everything, a ship more advanced than anything the assembly had ever seen. 5 years passed since humanity's first contact with the assembly. Earth had changed in many ways. Assembly technology had improved life for many, with better medicine, cleaner energy, and faster travel. But the feeling of being watched never went away. The assembly delegates were everywhere, always watching, always judging. Captain Tom Harris, now Admiral Harris, still served as Earth's main contact with the aliens. He had grown tired of their constant looks of disapproval. On a cold winter morning, Tom sat in his office reviewing reports when his computer beeped. A message marked urgent appeared on his screen from the Deep Space Research Vessel Horizon. Admiral, we found something. Something big. Cannot share details over normal channels. Request secure meeting. The message was from Dr. Anna Wilson, the lead scientist on humanity's most distant research mission. The Assembly had only approved the mission because they thought it would find nothing important. 6 hours later, Tom sat in a secure room deep under the old United Nations building in New York. A large screen on the wall came to life, showing Anna's face. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Show me what you found," Tom said without greeting. "Sir, we were exploring the edge of what the Assembly calls dead space, an area they said had nothing of value." Anna's eyes were wide with excitement. They lied. The screen changed to show what looked like a massive ship, unlike anything Tom had ever seen. It floated silently in the blackness of space, at least 3 times larger than the biggest assembly vessel. "What am I looking at?" Tom asked. "A ship, sir, but not assembly design, not even close, and according to our scans, it's at least 100,000 years old." Tom leaned forward. 100,000? That's older than human civilization. "Much older," Anna agreed. "And here's the interesting part. It's not dead. There's still power running through some systems." Over the next hour, Anna explained how her team had found the ancient ship and managed to board it. The inside was strange. Not built for beings like the assembly species or humans. The technology was far beyond even what the assembly used. "Have you told them?" Tom asked. Anna shook her head. "No, sir. Given how they treat us, I thought it best to contact you first." "Good call," Tom said. "Keep this quiet. I'll send Bill and a team of our best engineers to help. Learn everything you can before the assembly finds out." For 2 months, Earth's best scientists worked in secret to understand the ancient ship. They learned it had weapons systems far beyond assembly technology. Its engines could move faster than anything known. Most importantly, they found a way to partially activate its systems. Captain Joe Black, now in charge of the Horizon, reported directly to Tom. "Sir, we've managed to get some of the ship's computer working. It's incredible. This thing could outfight an entire assembly fleet. Do we understand how to use it?" Tom asked. "Not fully," Joe admitted. "But we're learning fast." Then came the day they all feared. An assembly patrol ship detected unusual energy readings and investigated. Within hours, Dorn demanded a meeting with Earth's leaders. "You have found technology that does not belong to you," Dorn said, his usually calm voice now sharp. "The Assembly demands you surrender this dangerous artifact immediately." World President Maria Garcia stood firm. The ship was found in unclaimed space by an authorized Earth expedition. By the Assembly's own laws, that makes it ours. "Laws for civilized species," Dorn replied coldly. "Not savages who cannot understand the danger. That ship belongs to the predecessors, a species that vanished long ago. Such technology is too dangerous for humans." "We disagree," President Garcia said. "We will continue to study it." Dorn's face showed something new. Fear. "Then you leave. Us no choice. The Assembly Council will decide how to handle this problem." That night, Tom met with Bill and Jane in the same secure room. "They're scared," Bill said with a small smile. "For the first time, they're actually scared of us." "Because they know what that ship can do," Jane added. "The question is, do we?" Tom looked at the latest reports from the Horizon team. "Not yet, but we're close." "We should give it up," Jane said suddenly. Both men looked at her in surprise. The Assembly controls most of the galaxy. If they decide we're a threat, they could destroy Earth. "They might try anyway," Bill argued. Think about it. If we have technology that makes us equal or even stronger than them, will they really let us keep it? They called us savages from day one. They'll never see us as equals. 3 days later, the Assembly Council made its decision. Earth had 48 hours to surrender the ancient ship or face serious consequences. President Garcia called an emergency meeting of Earth's top leaders and military commanders. If we give up the ship, we remain under their control forever, Tom said to the room. If we keep it, we risk war with a power that controls most of the galaxy. But we have the ship, Bill reminded everyone, which might be more powerful than their entire fleet. Might be, Jane emphasized. We don't know for sure. The debate raged for hours. In the end, President Garcia made the final call. We keep the ship, we continue to learn from it, but we also try one more time for peace. She looked at Tom. Admiral Harris, you'll deliver our answer. We will not surrender the ship, but we offer to share any non-military knowledge we gain from it. That's the best they're going to get. Tom delivered the message personally to Dorn. The Assembly representative's face showed no emotion, but his voice was cold. You have made your choice, Admiral. Remember this moment when your people suffer the consequences of your savage pride. As Tom left the Assembly compound, he received an urgent message from Joe on the horizon. Admiral, the ship's systems are powering up on their own. It's like it's waking up. And sir, we found something else. Records. Data about why the predecessors disappeared. You need to see this. Before Tom could reply, alarm sirens began to sound across the city. He looked up to see multiple Assembly ships moving into Earth's orbit. The Assembly had made their decision too. There would be no more talking. The time for action had come. As Tom rushed to the military command center, he realized humanity was about to find out if they had discovered salvation or doom in that ancient, dangerous ship. The Assembly ships moved into Earth's orbit like giant predators circling their prey. Admiral Tom Harris watched the tactical displays with growing dread as more vessels appeared every hour. 17 ships now, sir, reported Commander Rick, the head of Earth's orbital defense, including 3 of their largest class. And how many can we realistically fight? Tom asked, already knowing the answer. Rick hesitated. Maybe 2 if we're lucky. Our technology is still too far behind theirs. The command center buzzed with tense activity as military personnel prepared for what seemed inevitable. 5 years of uneasy peace with the Assembly was ending because of one ancient ship. Any word from the horizon? Tom asked. Still trying to establish secure communications, Rick said. The Assembly is jamming most frequencies. Jane rushed into the room, her diplomatic uniform wrinkled as if she had been wearing it for days. I just came from an emergency meeting with Dorn. They're calling this a security action, not a war. Does that distinction matter when they're pointing weapons at our planet? Tom asked. It matters because they're not planning to destroy Earth, Jane explained. They want the ancient ship and they want to place us under direct control. No more pretending we have any independence. Bill joined them, his face grim. So either we hand over our only advantage or they take it by force. President Garcia's face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Harris, please report. Tom gave a quick update on the Assembly fleet's position and Earth's defensive readiness. And the ancient ship? She asked. Still trying to reach the horizon. Team, Madam President, communications are difficult right now. We need that ship, Admiral. Whatever it can do, whatever secrets it holds, it's our only hope of surviving this. The screen went black as another communication cut in. Captain Joe's face appeared, the image breaking up with static. Admiral, can you hear me? The ship, it's... Static cut across his words. Joe? Captain Black? Repeat your message. Tom ordered. Systems, activating on their own. We can't control. More static. Some kind of defense protocol. It's like it knows the transmission died completely. Get them back, Tom ordered. For 3 tense hours, they tried every possible communication method to reach the horizon. Meanwhile, the Assembly fleet moved into attack formation. President Garcia called again. Admiral Dorn just delivered their final ultimatum. We have 1 hour to surrender the ancient ship and accept their protection, or they will take action. Madam President, I recommend we evacuate as many people as possible to the underground shelters. If they attack, already started, she interrupted. But I need options, Admiral, real options. Before Tom could answer, the tactical display lit up with new warnings. Sir, Rick shouted. The assembly flagship is powering weapons, they said. We had an hour, Jane whispered. Looks like they lied, Bill replied. Tom made his decision. Battle stations. All defense platforms prepare to engage. Get our ships in position to protect major population centers. The next few minutes were chaos as Earth's limited defenses prepared for the fight they couldn't win. Then, suddenly, the communications officer called out, Sir, incoming transmission from the horizon. The main screen showed Captain Joe looking both terrified and amazed. Admiral, the ship activated some kind of defensive system when it detected the assembly fleet. We didn't do anything, it acted on its own. What kind of defensive system? Tom demanded. Some kind of energy field. It's expanding rapidly and… Joe looked at something off-screen. My God, it's heading straight for the assembly fleet. On the tactical display, they watched as something moved from the position of the ancient ship toward the assembly vessels. It wasn't a weapon they recognized, more like a wave of energy spreading across space. Get me visual, Tom ordered. The screen split to show actual footage from an Earth satellite. A ripple of blue-green light moved through space. Beautiful, but terrifying. When it reached the first assembly ship, the massive vessel simply stopped. All lights went dark. It drifted lifelessly. The wave continued, touching ship after ship. Each one went dark upon contact. What's happening? Jane asked, her voice barely a whisper. It's shutting them down, Bill said in awe. Some kind of targeted EMP, maybe? The assembly flagship was the last to be hit. Unlike the others, it managed to fire its weapons before going dark. Energy beams lanced toward Earth. Incoming fire, Rick shouted. The beams struck Earth's orbital defense platforms. 3 exploded instantly, killing everyone aboard. 2 more took heavy damage. Casualties? Tom asked, his voice tight. Early reports show over 200 dead, sir. 4 platforms destroyed or disabled. The room fell silent as everyone processed what had just happened. The assembly had fired, first killing hundreds of humans, but now their entire fleet floated powerless. Sir, Joe's voice came again from the screen. The ship is talking to us, not with words, but through the computer system. It's showing us how to control the energy field, how to board the assembly vessels safely. Keep me updated on everything, Tom ordered. And Captain? Good workout. There. Joe shook his head. We didn't do anything, sir. The ship did it all. It's like it was made to fight the assembly. Over the next few hours, human forces cautiously approached the disabled assembly ships. The crews inside were alive but unable to use any of their technology. Earth's military took control of each vessel without firing a shot. On the flagship, they found Dorn and the other assembly leaders in a state of shock. How did you activate predecessor weapons? Dorn demanded when Tom boarded the ship personally. Your kind shouldn't have been able to understand that technology. We didn't activate anything, Tom told him. The ship did it on its own when you prepared to attack us. Impossible, Dorn insisted, but fear showed clearly on his face. Meanwhile, scientists studying the ancient ship made a breakthrough. Dr. Anna managed to access more of its records, learning pieces of a story that changed everything. Admiral, she reported, the predecessors didn't just disappear, they were wiped out by the assembly, or rather by the species that later formed the assembly. Tom stared at her in disbelief. Are you certain? The records are fragmented but clear enough. The assembly species were once like us, newcomers to the galactic stage. The predecessors welcomed them, shared technology, tried to help them develop peacefully. In return, once they gained enough power, they attacked and destroyed the predecessors. This ship was part of their last defense system, hidden away in case any predecessors survived. The revelation spread quickly through Earth's leadership. President Garcia called an emergency meeting with Tom and his team. So the assembly's fear wasn't just about us being savages, she said. They were afraid we'd discover their crime, and that we might follow the same path as the predecessors, Jane added, helping others who would eventually destroy us. What do we do now? Bill asked. We have their fleet. We have the ancient ship. We could end this. Tom looked at the reports coming in from around the world. People were celebrating, thinking the war was over before it truly began. But he knew better. This wasn't a war, he said quietly. It was the first battle. The assembly controls thousands of worlds. They'll send more ships. And we'll be ready, President Garcia declared. The tables have turned. They called us savages. Now they'll learn what happens when those savages are pushed too far. As Tom left the meeting, he wondered if humanity was about to make the same mistake the assembly had, using newfound power to wage war instead of seeking peace. But as reports of the dead came in from the destroyed defense platforms, he also knew there might be no other choice. The assembly had fired first. What came next would be on their heads. The attack on Earth's orbital defenses changed everything. 2,374 people died when the assembly weapons hit the platforms. Each name was read aloud during a global memorial service. Admiral Tom Harris stood with other leaders as the names echoed around the world. After the service, Tom met with President Garcia and what remained of Earth's military command in an underground base in the Rocky Mountains. The assembly has gone silent, Jane reported. We've received no transmissions from their homeworlds or outposts. They're planning, Bill said, gathering a larger force. President Garcia nodded. Our scientists estimate we have 3 weeks, maybe a month before they arrive. The question is, what do we do with that time? All eyes turned to Tom. We scatter, he said simply. Earth is too easy a target. We move as many people as possible to bases on Mars, the Moon, even the outer planets. We hide in the asteroid belt. We become harder to find and harder to kill. And the ancient ship? Asked Garcia. That's our main focus. Dr. Anna and her team have made progress understanding its technology. We need to learn everything we can, as fast as we can. Within days, the largest evacuation in human history began. Millions of people moved to hastily constructed bases across the solar system. Earth's remaining ships spread out, ready to fight using what they'd learned from the ancient vessel. Tom moved his command center to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. From there, he coordinated with Captain Joe and Dr. Anna, who continued working on the ancient ship, now code-named Legacy. 2 weeks after the first attack, Anna made contact. Admiral, we've accessed more of the Legacy's database, she reported, her face tired but excited on the video screen. The predecessors called themselves the Guardians. They built their civilization around helping young species develop peacefully. Until the assembly species betrayed them, Tom said. Anna nodded. Yes. And here's the important part. The Legacy isn't just one ship. It's a prototype. There were plans for hundreds, maybe thousands more hidden throughout the galaxy. Hidden where? Tom leaned forward. We don't know exact locations yet, but the ship contains technology specifically designed to counter assembly weapons. Like, it was made for this exact purpose, to help someone fight them someday. As Anna spoke, alarms blared in the background. What's happening? Tom demanded. Assembly scout ships, Joe's voice called from off-screen. They found us. The transmission cut off. Tom immediately ordered a battle alert across the solar system. Within hours, reports came in of assembly ships appearing near every major human outpost. But these weren't the same ships as before. They were smaller, faster, and seemed immune to the energy field that had disabled their fleet during the first encounter. They adapted, Bill said grimly as they watched battle reports come in. They must have developed shielding against the Legacy's defense system. The first wave of the second attack was brutal. 3 Earth outposts were destroyed before they could even respond. But the scattered human forces made it harder for the assembly to deliver a killing blow. For 3 days, battles raged across the solar system. Humans used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly, then hiding again. The Legacy, now partially under human control, proved valuable despite the assembly's new defenses. Its weapons could still damage their ships, just not disable them completely as before. On the fourth day, Captain Joe managed to make contact from the Legacy. "Admiral, we're holding our position, but barely. The assembly forces are focusing most of their attention on us. They want this ship destroyed at all costs." "Can you get to safety?" Tom asked. "We have a better idea," Joe replied. Dr. Anna found something in the ship's records, locations of possible Guardian outposts where more technology might be hidden. "We're sending you the coordinates now." The PAR data came through showing 3 locations in nearby star systems. "We'll draw their attention while you send teams to these coordinates," Joe continued. "If we're lucky, we might find more ships like the Legacy, or at least technology we can use." "And if you're not lucky?" Tom asked quietly. Joe's face was calm despite the sounds of battle in the background. "Then it's been an honor, Admiral." Tom wasted no time. He assembled 3 small, fast teams led by his best officers. Using technology, reverse engineered from the Legacy, they could reach the nearest coordinates in just days, not years. Meanwhile, the battle for the solar system continued. The Legacy and its crew fought bravely, drawing much of the assembly's attention. But Earth forces were taking heavy losses. For every assembly ship they destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. 5 days into the second attack, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jane, who had been working with captured assembly personnel, rushed into Tom's command center. "Admiral, I've been talking to the assembly crew members we captured. Some of them are willing to help us." "Help us? Why would they do that?" Bill asked, suspiciously. "Because not all assembly species agree with attacking Earth," Jane explained. "Some were forced to join centuries ago, just like they were trying to force us. They've been waiting for a chance to break free." Tom studied Jane's excited face. "What exactly are they offering?" "Information. Assembly ship codes, communication frequencies, tactical plans, and most importantly, they say there are others. Like them, many of the species conquered by the assembly would rise up if given the chance." For the first time since the attack began, Tom felt a spark of hope. This wasn't just about humanity's survival now. It was about freedom for many species, as, if to confirm this new possibility, one of the teams sent to find Guardian technology reported in. "Admiral, this is Commander Lewis. We found something at the first location. Not a ship, but a facility. It's hidden inside an asteroid. And sir, we're not alone here." "Assembly forces?" Tom asked quickly. "No, sir. Representatives from at least 3 other species. They say they've been searching for Guardian technology too, trying to find a way to break free from assembly control." Tom looked at the star map showing the known assembly territory. Thousands of worlds across, hundreds of star systems. If even a fraction of those worlds joined the fight against their oppressors. "Connect me with these representatives," he ordered. "It's time we compared notes." Over the next few days, a remarkable alliance began to form. The species Commander Lewis had encountered shared their own discoveries about Guardian technology. Combined with what humans had learned from the Legacy, they began to develop new weapons and defenses. On Earth, the remaining humans fought desperately to hold back assembly forces that had landed in key locations. They were fighting for time for the new alliance to grow stronger. At the Legacy's position, Captain Joe and Dr. Anna continued their desperate battle. Their ship had taken heavy damage, but they refused to retreat. "We found something else," Anna reported during a brief communication window. "The Guardians didn't just build weapons. They created a network, a way for different species to communicate and cooperate across vast distances." "Can we access this network?" Tom asked. "We're trying," Joe replied. "If we succeed, we could potentially contact every world under assembly, control simultaneously." The transmission ended as another assembly attack began. Tom stared at the silent screen, hoping it wouldn't be the last time he heard from them. Later that night, as Tom studied reports from across the solar system, Bill joined him. "Remember when they called us savages?" Bill asked quietly. Tom nodded, not looking up from his work. "I've been thinking about that," Bill continued. "Maybe being savage isn't such a bad thing. The assembly created this perfect, controlled society where everyone knows their place. Maybe you need a little savagery to fight for freedom. Tom finally looked up, a tired smile on his face. Maybe you're right. And maybe that's why the Guardians left their technology for someone like us to find. As dawn broke over Titan's methane, sea's new reports came in. The tide was beginning to turn. The savages of Earth weren't finished yet, not by a long shot. 6 months passed since the Assembly's attack on Earth. 6 months of fighting, hiding, and building a resistance that stretched across dozens of star systems. Admiral Tom Harris looked older now, his face lined with worry and lack of sleep. But his eyes held something new: hope. He stood in the command center of the human base on Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. Around him, representatives from 7 different species worked together, monitoring the growing alliance against the Assembly. "Status report," Tom called out. Commander Lewis, who had led the first team to discover allies beyond the solar system, stepped forward. "Production of new ships based on Guardian technology is at 85% of target. 23 worlds have openly joined our alliance. Another 46 are providing secret support. And the Assembly? Still searching for us, but their forces are spreading. Thin. They can't be everywhere at once." Tom nodded and turned to Jane, who now led diplomatic relations with their new allies. "The crawl ships will arrive tomorrow," she reported. "That will give us enough firepower for the operation." The operation. After months of planning, the Alliance was ready to strike at the heart of the Assembly, their central command station. It was a bold plan, maybe even foolish. But if they succeeded, they could break the Assembly's control in a single blow. Bill joined them, limping slightly from a wound received during a battle 2 months ago. "Legacy team just reported in," he said. "They're ready." Legacy team. The name still brought a mix of pride and pain to Tom. Captain Joe had died defending the ancient ship, but Dr. Anna and half the crew had survived. They had spent the last months unlocking more of the Guardian technology, finding ways to activate the vast communication network the ancient species had built. "And our guest?" Tom asked quietly. "Still talking," Bill replied with a grim smile. Their guest was Dorn, captured during the first battle. At first he had refused to cooperate, certain the Assembly would crush the human resistance. But as months passed and the alliance grew stronger, he began to share information, not out of loyalty to humans, but from fear of what would happen when his superiors discovered his failure. Tom walked to a small room where Dorn was held. The alien looked smaller somehow, his once proud posture now bent with worry. "The attack is tomorrow," Tom said without greeting. Dorn's eyes widened. "You're still going through with it? You must know it's suicide. The central station is the most heavily defended position in Assembly space." "We know. That's why we need the command codes you promised." Dorn hesitated. "And if I provide them, what happens to me?" "You live," Tom said simply. "Which is more than your leaders offered us." After a moment, Dorn nodded. "The codes are real. They will get you past the outer defenses. But the inner chambers, those are protected differently. We'll handle that part," Tom assured him. Later that night, Tom couldn't sleep. He stood at a viewing window, looking out at Jupiter's massive form. Jane found him there, staring into space. "Having doubts?" she asked. "Wondering if we're doing the right thing," Tom admitted. "The Guardians tried to help other species peacefully and they were destroyed for it. We're choosing war." "The Assembly chose war," Jane reminded him. "We're choosing survival. And after, if we win tomorrow, what kind of galaxy do we help build? Do we become the new Assembly, controlling others with our power?" Jane had no answer for that. The next day, ships from all Alliance species gathered at the edge of Assembly space. Over 300 vessels, most using technology adapted from Guardian designs. At their center was the Legacy, its ancient systems, now fully operational under Dr. Anna's guidance. Tom stood on the bridge of the flagship, Earth's newest and most powerful ship, named Guardian, in honor of those who came before. Around him, A mixed crew of humans and allies worked in perfect coordination. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Bill announced. Tom took a deep breath. "Send the signal. Operation Freedom begins now." The fleet moved as one, jumping to the coordinates of the Assembly Central Station. Using Dorn's codes, they bypassed the outer defense grid without firing a shot. The station came into view, a massive structure at the center of a vast network of smaller installations. For a moment, the assembly forces seemed surprised, unprepared. Then alarms sounded, and defensive. Weapons powered up. "They know we're here," Bill said unnecessarily. "All ships execute Battle Plan Theta," Tom ordered. "Guardian teams prepare for boarding." The battle erupted in flashes of energy and light. Alliance ships moved in precise formation, using tactics developed over months of smaller engagements. The assembly ships tried to respond, but they were facing technology they hadn't seen before. Guardian weapons adapted by multiple species working together. On the Legacy, Dr. Anna activated the ship's most powerful system. A pulse of energy, spread outward, connecting to hidden Guardian relays throughout assembly space. Suddenly, on every assembly-controlled world, communication systems broadcast the same message. "The time has come to be free. The assembly's control is breaking. Rise up and join us." Tom led the boarding team onto the central station. They fought their way through corridors and chambers, facing increasingly desperate resistance. In the final approach to the central command room, Tom was wounded, an energy blast grazing his shoulder. "Keep going," he ordered the others, pressing his hand against the bleeding wound. They reached the command center and found the assembly leaders, the original species who had formed the alliance that grew into an empire. They stood tall and proud even in defeat. "You savages," one of them hissed at Tom. "You've destroyed everything we built." "We ended what you built," Tom corrected him. "An empire based on lies and control. You didn't create peace, you created fear." As Alliance forces secured the station, Dr. Anna made another discovery in the Guardian records. She contacted Tom immediately. "Admiral, I found the real reason the Assembly attacked the Guardians," she said, her voice tense with anger. "They weren't afraid of Guardian technology. They were afraid of Guardian ideas." "What ideas?" Tom asked. "That all species are equal. That power should be shared, not hoarded. That different civilizations can work together without one controlling the others." "Dangerous ideas indeed," Tom said with a tired smile. Within days, the news spread across assembly space. World after world declared independence. Some remained loyal to the old order, but they were outnumbered by those eager for freedom. 1 month after the battle, representatives from over 100 species gathered on a neutral world to discuss the future. Tom, now fully recovered from his wound, addressed them. "We stand at a turning point," he said. "We defeated the assembly, but now we face a greater challenge, building something better in its place." He looked around at the diverse gathering, beings of all shapes, sizes, and evolutionary backgrounds. The Guardians believed species could work together as equals. They were destroyed for that belief. We have a chance to prove they were right, to create a true alliance, not an empire. The debate lasted for days. Some wanted humans to take control, arguing they had led the fight and should lead the peace. Others feared any central authority, preferring complete independence for all worlds. In the end, they formed the Galactic Cooperation, not a government, but a forum where all species could meet as equals. No species could impose its will on others. Decisions required broad consensus. As the gathering ended, Tom stood with Jane and Bill, watching ships from dozens of worlds depart for home. "So," Bill said, "not bad for a bunch of savages." Tom smiled. "Maybe that was our advantage. The assembly was so convinced of their superiority, they couldn't imagine losing to us." "And now?" Jane asked. "What does Earth do in this new galaxy?" Tom watched as the Legacy took off, now part of a fleet dedicated to exploration rather than war. Dr. Anna had found coordinates for more Guardian outposts, hoping to learn from their wisdom rather than just their weapons. "We do what humans have," Always done, Tom said. We adapt, we learn, we grow, and maybe we help others do the same. As Earth rebuilt and expanded into the stars, humans carried with them the memory of being called savages. But now the word had taken on a new meaning. In the new galactic cooperation, to be called savage meant to be fierce in defense of freedom, relentless in the face of tyranny, and unwilling to accept control by others. The assembly had meant it as an insult. Humans had turned it into a badge of honor. And far away in the depths of space, the Guardian legacy lived on, not just in technology, but in the idea that different species could work together as equals, building something greater than any could achieve alone. The savages had built a better galaxy after all.